How's it going, everybody? My name is LuckyBunz, and in today's video I'm going to be breaking down everything you need to know for the Adventure Week 2024 event in Pokemon GO. With that being said, let's jump straight into it. Okay, so first of all, this event is going to be taking place from August 2nd to August 12th from 10 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. local time. There's also going to be a part 2 for this event, which is basically a Team Go Rocket takeover. I'm going to cover that in a separate video. Now, the bonuses are going to be as follows. We're going to get 2x spin experience on PokeStops, and then we're also going to get 5x spin experience on new PokeStops, along with 2x hatch experience. Now, I know one of the most common questions people have been asking is how much experience do you actually get for spinning new PokeStops during this event? After all, this is one of the main bonuses of Adventure Week that makes this event so good for new players. But is it actually worth using Lucky Eggs on? Well, let's actually take a look at this. Basically, the breakdown is that if you spin a PokeStop normally, it's going to give you 100 experience, and plus a 2x spin bonus on PokeStops is going to be 200 experience. Now, when you go ahead and spin a new PokeStop, you're going to get a bonus experience of 200, and then with the 5x spin experience on new PokeStops, that's going to be 1000 experience, for a total of 1200 experience. Now, if you actually have a Lucky Egg on, that is going to be 2400 experience. Now that you actually know how much experience you're going to be getting when spinning new PokeStops during this event, is it actually worth using Lucky Eggs? So from my perspective as a free-to-play player, it's not worth using Lucky Eggs for just spinning new PokeStops. Now, with that being said, if you're going to be redeeming friendship bonuses at the same time, then it would be a good additional action, but definitely not worthy of the Lucky Egg by itself. For most players, spinning new PokeStops would require them to travel to a new area, and the XP is honestly negligible when you really think about it. To give you guys some perspective here, if you leveled up to Great Friends with 5 friends, that would be 100,000 experience on a Lucky Egg. If you leveled up to Ultra Friends with 1 friend, that would be 100,000 experience on a Lucky Egg. Now, the equivalent of that would be spinning roughly 45 new PokeStops within 30 minutes to get 100,000 experience on a Lucky Egg just from this event bonus. So you could spend all this time and effort to travel to a new location and spin new PokeStops, but in my opinion, it's really not worth it. Friendship bonuses are just so much more efficient, and if you don't have that many friends in Pokemon Go, then I highly recommend using the Pokemon Go Friends subreddit page to add more people. Now, aside from friendship bonuses, we also have Excellent Throws, which offer 1000 experience and 2000 experience on a Lucky Egg. And during calm days when we have 3x catch experience, this turns into 6000 experience, not including the other catching bonuses. So it roughly takes 16 excellent throws to achieve this on a calm day, which is far easier in my opinion than finding and spinning 45 new PokeStops. So unless you're going to be spinning at least 45 new PokeStops on a Lucky Egg, I really don't recommend using them. Next up, let's go over the debut Pokemon, which unfortunately there isn't going to be one during the first portion of this event. We are going to be getting some new Pokemon during the Team Go Rocket takeover portion, which once again I will be covering in a separate video. But this is the first time in years that Niantic has not actually added anything new for Adventure Week. Last year we actually got the Shiny Tyrunt and Shiny Amora lines along with the debut of Mega Tyranitar, so for this year not getting anything, it does feel a little bit off, especially given that we could have gotten the Gen 8 fossil Pokemon. Next up, let's go over the wild encounters, and then we'll talk about which ones are actually worth focusing on later on in this video. So first up we have Diglett, Almanite, Kabuto, Dunsparce, Roggenrola, Drilbur, Bunnelby, and Aerodactyl as the rare spawn. Now for the field research, we're going to have Dunsparce, Leap, Anorith, Craniados, Shieldon, Roggenrola, Drilbur, Tortuga, Arcan, Bunnelby, Tyrunt, and Amora, along with Mega Aerodactyl energy as well. Now before we actually dive into the special 7km eggs, I do want to first take a look at the legendary and mega raids that are going to be available during this event. So first up, let's take a look at Mega Aerodactyl, which is going to be available from August 3rd to August 12th, basically the end of this event. So while we did just recently have Mega Tyranitar available in raid battles, and on paper it's definitely one of the best rock type Pokemon to have in game next to Mega Diancie, Mega Aerodactyl is actually a really good rock type Pokemon to have as well for the Mega, because most of the time when rock type Pokemon are used, they're actually used against flying type legendary Pokemon. And because Mega Aerodactyl is also a dual rock and flying type Pokemon, this means that it can also provide the extra large candy boost when catching. I never really considered this option until one of my viewers actually pointed it out in a recent video, so big shout out to them, because their perspective showed me how valuable this Pokemon actually is in raid battles. So I do highly recommend using your free passes to actually get your hands on some extra Mega Energy on Mega Aerodactyl, because it is totally going to be worth it. Now when it comes down to the legendary Pokemon that is going to be featured during this event, we're going to have Moltres from the same time frame. Now in terms of the meta relevance for Moltres, the only thing that I would be focused on is Moltres for the extra large candy to actually power up the Shadow variant if you have it. The regular variant for Moltres has been far outclassed as a fire type attacker in Pokemon Go at this point, so there isn't really a big reason to spend resources powering this Pokemon up anymore. It does still hold up decently well as a flying type attacker, but you will need the legacy moveset Sky Attack, which unfortunately it won't have during this rotation. So once again, I would really only be focused on farming candy candy and extra large candy to invest into your shadow variant if you have it. In terms of PvP, it's really not that great either. Next up, let's take a look at the special 7km eggs, which are supposed to be shiny boosted during this event. We're going to have 6 Pokemon featured: Cranidos, Shieldon, Tortuga, Arcan, Tyrunt, and Amora. Once again, all these Pokemon are also going to be featured in the field research quests as well. Now, is it actually worth hatching these special 7km eggs? So for anybody who hasn't been playing Pokemon Go for a long time, eggs are known to be a scam in-game outside of hatch day events, so please manage your expectations going into this. Like, while the shiny rate is claimed to be boosted, history has shown that these odds are not always that good. Now, we actually had special 7km eggs featured a few weeks ago during Pokemon Go Fest Global, and let me tell you this right now, most of my friends who actually hatched a bunch of eggs barely got anything. Like, maybe they got like one shiny, that's it. But if we actually put aside the claimed increased shiny odds, the only 2 meta-relevant Pokemon here are going to be Cranidos and Shieldon, which evolve into Rampardos and Bastiodon respectively, both of which were actually featured in the wild last year and have also been featured during many events in the past. These Pokemon also had their own field research day a few years ago, so they aren't exactly like exclusive Pokemon, but for some reason during this event, they're kind of being treated that way. I also forgot to mention this as well, but Amora is also going to be meta-relevant in the Open Great League, which evolves into Auroras, but given that the main relevance for this Pokemon is in the Open Great League and the Open Ultra League, being locked behind 7km eggs and field research doesn't no justice because the IV floors is going to be 10-10-10. The same can basically be said about Shieldon evolving into Bastiodon as well, since its main relevance is going to be in the Open Great League, but I feel like the main incentive to actually hatch more Bastiodon from these eggs would be for the extra large candy to actually power up your good IV spread for the Open Great League, because that is going to actually be around level 50. Trust me when I say this though, it is totally worth it. In terms of actually farming 7km eggs to get the extra large candy though, that's a different story. Now when it comes down to Cranidos though, it doesn't actually suffer from the same problem, since you would ideally want to focus your extra large candy for your shadows. This Pokemon is currently available in the Shadow Grant rotation right now, so accessibility is on the table. Now to round things off for these 7km eggs, let's also go over the special event ticket, which is going to cost $2. You're going to get 2 incubators and 1 super incubator, along with some encounters with the event-themed Pokemon, which I'm not really sure what those event-themed Pokemon might be. Like, I'm guessing they're the featured Pokemon that are going to be in 7km eggs, but again, they didn't really disclose what those Pokemon are, so I have no idea. The value is technically there based on the shop value for these incubators just alone, but once again, I strongly advise against focusing a lot of resources on these 7km eggs. That being said, I know a lot of people don't really heed these warnings, so if you're going to hatch these eggs anyways, then, you know, this special event ticket will actually save you a couple hundred Pokecoins on incubators. Next up, let's go over the collection challenge. So from this one, you're going to get Mega Energy on Mega Aerodactyl. This likely won't be enough to Mega Evolve your Mega Aerodactyl, but every little bit does help. So Mega Aerodactyl is also going to be featured in raid battles like I mentioned earlier, and in the field research quest, so you guys can get more energy that way. We're also going to have showcases featured during this event, and if I had to predict which ones we're going to be getting, I would say the fossil Pokemon from eggs are going to be the ones that are going to be featured. This event is going to be 10 days long, which is longer than most events in-game, and so there's definitely going to be a good chance that we could see each pair of fossil Pokemon featured. So for example, Cranidos and Shieldon in one showcase, Tortuga and Arcan in one showcase, and then finally Tyrunt and Amora in one showcase. Once again, this is just my prediction though. Niantic does not actually post the showcase schedule anymore on their website, so there's actually no way to know which Pokemon is going to be featured until the rotation actually comes into play. Next up, let's take a look at the Drilbur Spotlight Hour. So during this event, we're going to have a Spotlight Hour for Drilbur with a special bonus being 2x catch experience. When evolved to Excadrill, this Pokemon does have great relevance in the raid/gym meta as well as PvP, especially in its shadow form, which is currently available right now from Team Go Rocket Grunts. The upside here is that there's also going to be no legacy movesets to use on this Pokemon either, so compared to something like Garchomp, which does require Earth Power as a Calm Day exclusive moveset, this is definitely going to be a good alternative. Now for the most part, this Spotlight Hour should be used to farm as much candy and extra large candy as possible for your shadows to build. In terms of the XP bonus, while it is nice, it's nothing too crazy compared to the other methods in game like friendship bonuses and 3x catch experience during certain Calm Days, so for that reason I wouldn't really recommend using Lucky Eggs during the Spotlight Hour unless you have a lot of them. Your main focus should be catching as many Drilbur as possible rather than aiming for excellent throws. Now in terms of the best moveset you want to have on this Pokemon, for raid battles you ideally want to go with Mudslap plus Scorching Sands, and then for PvP you want to ideally run Mudshot plus Drill Run and Rock Slide. Remember, the name of the game here is going to be candy bonuses, so do everything in your power to stockpile as much of this as possible. Now with that being said, let's go over the other best Pokemon to focus on during this event, starting off with Dunsparce, which is relevant in the Open Great League. But that's actually not the only reason that I would recommend focusing on this Pokemon. We just recently had the debut of Mousehold in Pokemon GO, which actually has a special evolution to a 3-family Mousehold, which is normally a 4-family Mousehold. There's a 1 out of 100 chance to actually get this Pokemon in the special form. This basically confirms that 3-segmented Dunsparce will likely be coming to Pokemon GO at some point in the future. This will most likely function the same way it does in the main series games, meaning that you have a 1 out of 100 chance to actually get this special form when evolving your Dunsparce. Basically what I'm trying to say here is that you want to have as much candy as possible on this bad boy, because that is going to require a ton of evolutions. Not to mention, for shiny hunters out there, you're going to need as much candy as possible on top of as many shiny variants as possible. The next Pokemon that I'm going to talk about is going to be Roggenrola, which evolves into Gigalith. So when traded, if you actually evolve Roggenrola into Boldore, it's going to cost you 50 candy, but when you evolve it into Gigalith, it's actually going to be a free evolution. This is because Roggenrola is one of the few Pokemon that benefits from the trade evolution discount. This makes it a great budget rock type attacker for new players. Now with that being said, it does also require its legacy moveset Meteor Beam in order for it to actually be at its best, but I would not recommend using an Elite TM on this Pokemon. The main reason for this is because it is meant to be used as a temporary attacker and not a permanent one. You definitely have access to a lot of better rock type Pokemon out there during this event, especially if you can actually farm some of those shadows. Now following that, the next Pokemon that I would recommend focusing on is going to be Bunnelby, which evolves into Diggersby, or Diggersby, I don't really know how to pronounce that correctly. This Pokemon is going to have relevance in the Open Great League and is going to require a lot of extra large candy to power it up if you get a good PvP-IV spread. So definitely another great Pokemon to focus on grinding for if you don't already have one. And then finally, we already talked about this Pokemon a little bit, is going to be Aerodactyl, which is going to be the rare spawn during this event. We did already touch on this Pokemon earlier in the Legendary Raid section of this video, but just to reiterate once again, Mega Aerodactyl is definitely a Pokemon worth grinding for during this event, even though it is going to be a rare spawn. Like getting 296 extra large candy to actually max out your Mega at level 50 is going to be worth it. Now for the remainder of the Pokemon featured in Field Research and Eggs, I'm not going to spend too much time going over their relevance for Great League and Ultra League because it won't be ideal to actually hunt them during this event. Now you could actually trade for lower IVs on these Pokemon, but I guarantee we're going to get future events where you can actually catch these Pokemon in the wild, which means you can take advantage of that potential 0 attack IV. The only Pokemon that I do want to focus on though from the Field Research tasks as well as the eggs is going to be Cranidos, which evolves into Rampardos. So this is going to be a very glassy rock type attacker, but it has great DPS in game, which stands for damage per second. Now since the Shadow variant is going to be available right now in Team Go Rocket Grunts, the best thing to focus on would be the candy and extra large candy to actually power that up if you have it. Otherwise, use this opportunity to actually farm candy and then wait until you get a good IV spread and then power it up. When it comes down to Shadow Pokemon, anything above 3-star is going to be ideal in my opinion. Now with that being said, that pretty much covers all the relevant Pokemon I wanted to go over. If you felt like I missed anything, let me know in the comment section down below. But now let's go over the best Mega Evolution to use during this event. If you wanted to go with the Rock type Mega, go with Aerodactyl, Tyranitar, or Diancie. If you wanted to go with the Ground type Mega, Steelix, Swampert, or Garchomp. I also want to remind you guys, since most of the good Pokemon are going to be in Field Research during this event, you can stack them by running away from the encounter and then redeeming them later. So for example, you could have a ground type Mega active for the Drilbur spawns during the event and then switch to a rock type Mega when you're going to go through and clear your stack. Either way, whichever one of these Megas you do have a Mega level 3, prioritize that one over the others for increased candy and extra large candy. And with that being said, that pretty much wraps things up for this video. If you guys do want to check out some more content, I'm going to recommend these 2 videos right here. But before you go, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you all real soon in the next one.